This is me in the finals of a massive Pokemon tournament, and this is my opponent. The thing is, my opponent is a really good friend of mine. We actually went out for dinner the night before. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down my thought process throughout the entire match. Stick around to find out who wins. So I played up against James Evans in the finals. I was using a team of Chien-Pao, Landorus, Rillaboom, Incineroar, Urshifu, Water, and Raging Bolt. The team I'm using is called Bolt Balance or Japanese Balance. It is basically a balance team. For those of you who do not know, balance teams focus on having even matchup spreads across the board. The logic is if I have a 50-50 matchup against my opponent, I can rely on my difference as a player to win. James Evans, on the other hand, is using a team of Gouging Fire, Ogerpon, Rillaboom, Fluttermane, Kingambit, and Landorus I. So James's team is more so focused on the utility of using Gouging Fire to set up his team. For example, he could go for a Howl next to his Rillaboom, and that can power up Rillaboom to get a one-hit knockout later on. The fire type I'm using is Incineroar, which is more so focused on denying the opponent of their options. This matchup will be cool because I have a very defensively structured team, whereas James Evans' team is very offensively structured. Now, going into this set, the usual way I approach these is by getting rid of the Gouging Fire in the early game and then cleaning up with my Chien-Pao. If you look at James Evans' team, he only has one resistance for an Ice-type attack, which is the Kingambit, and Kingambit is 4 times weak to the Sacred Sword, which Chien-Pao has access to. So my general strategy is to save Chien-Pao for the in-game and then lead with a way to knock out the Gouging Fire. However, as we're about to see, James played this completely differently from how I expected. Let's get into it.
It'll be Landorus, Ogerpon, Wellspring for James, Landorus and Rillaboom for Brady.
By the way, there's no speed control in this matchup, so all the Pokemon they're similar Pokemon, depends on how they are trained and how those speed tiers interact, which means priority attacks are going to be even more important.
So immediately, right off the bat, I looked at James Evans' lead and realized that that is not a Gouging Fire. I figured he had to bring Gouging Fire into the matchup because it is his only matchup into my Chien-Pao. That being said, my whole strategy of saving Chien-Pao for the late game and then knocking out the Gouging Fire kind of got flipped. So I had to think on the fly here. I decided to click Fake Out onto Ogerpon and go for a substitute on my Landorus. What this accomplishes is with the substitute, I feel like I could take an Ivy Cudgel the next turn. Also, something I really want to point out, if you look at the Fake Out damage, Ogerpon lost about 1/8 of its health from that Fake Out, so I figured this Ogerpon was not very bulky.
Fake Out into the Ogerpon at this point. Sure, moving things away is nice, but you also want to make sure that you're putting on some pressure onto Brady. Make sure the substitute won't go on for free, as he decides to set that up for the first turn. Landorus free to do so this time around. Rillaboom going to be taking the brute force of the hit that time with the Sludge Bomb.
Something else I really want to point out about this turn is two things. Number one, the damage output of that Sludge Bomb on my Rillaboom was immense. So that told me that his Landorus was probably heavily invested in special attack, probably being modest. So my Rillaboom looked like it took a lot of damage on this turn. And the thing is, I didn't really care about that much because Rillaboom is just there to deny the opponent and set up my team. So basically, by having my Rillaboom get the Fake Out in exchange for a substitute, I felt pretty confident that that was a good trade. Now, on this next turn, I met with a choice. I could either go for a Grassy Glide into the Landorus and Sludge Bomb into the Ogerpon, or I could double tap the Landorus. So the thing is, James could go for a Spiky Shield onto his Ogerpon and go for a Sludge Bomb onto my Landorus, which would get rid of my substitute and then make the whole turn I took last turn obsolete. So I was not ready to fall for that, so I decided to double tap the Landorus this next turn.
Ogerpon being able to fire off a powerful...
So Grassy Glide came out first, which told me that the Ogerpon did not protect. So my read I went for did not really pay off, honestly. And I was kind of scared about this because I figured that James Evans would get a Sludge Bomb off my Rillaboom and then would go ahead, knock that out, and then knock out my substitute. So I thought I really kind of overextended on this turn.
Cudgel, but first it's going to be Grassy Glide into the Landorus. Start dealing some damage. Ivy Cudgel be hitting in.
However, I saw the Ivy Cudgel go out onto my Rillaboom. So this was kind of good because this, for me, meant that I was able to keep my substitute. But on the other hand, it was bad because I lost my Rillaboom. By the way, for anyone who's confused as to why James decided to go for the Ivy Cudgel in my Rillaboom, basically I have Incineroar in the back and he was trying to fish for that, so he was trying to go for a concept called a pin, which is where you lock down a slot with 2 moves, and no matter what I click, I'm going to be getting knocked out on that turn. So by clicking Ivy Cudgel and Sludge Bomb in my Rillaboom, which covers for a switch out into my Landorus I. The only thing it didn't really cover for is a switch into Raging Bolt, but I did not bring Raging Bolt inside this game.
Hit, and that is going to be Rillaboom sticking around and Sludge Bomb now into the Landorus to deal some additional damage. It's going to hide back behind its substitute, but still one more round of attacks that'll be into the...
So something I really want to highlight, if I had gone for a Sludge Bomb into the Ogerpon here, I would have liked my position so much more. However, I did not do that, and I got punished because I overextended. Okay, so around here, I was kind of met with a crossroads. I was trying to figure out how this would play out. So if I go into Incineroar, it's kind of weird, right? Because I could fake out the Landorus / the Ogerpon and then maybe get a knockout, but the only problem with that is James could just double protect and I get nothing out, and then I lose my Incineroar unless I Terra. And I didn't really like that. So I ended up going into Chien-Pao because I figured that I could lock down this Landorus with an Icicle Crash, and then I could lock down the Ogerpon with a Sludge Bomb. So on this turn, I decided to protect my Chien-Pao, and the reason why was because inside of my head, I wanted to keep my Focus Sash alive, and I figured that James might go for a double target because he wanted to basically guarantee I would break the Sash. Also, I could have maybe protected my Landorus Eye on this turn. However, that is not actually what happens. James decided to split his attacks off into two different ways, where he went for Horn Leech into my Landorus to knock out the substitute, and he also went for an attack onto my Chien-Pao. So I did end up catching one thing with the Protect, however, it was not quite enough, and I really wish I had gone the offense and taken 2 knockouts here.
Turn, because if you target on Chien-Pao, you're still not breaking Brady's sub.
Well, as well, Chien-Pao, naturally speedy, could have just gone for it anyways, but this time around, it will be the Protect, as it will be Ogerpon to hit into the Landorus with Horn Leech, get a little help, like, we'll just, fired back into the Ogerpon, super effective hit, and that is going to be clean KO at this point.
So I want to highlight like one thing about this, is that I could have gone for the double knockout on this turn. If I would have gone for the Icicle Crash on the Landorus Eye, I would have knocked it out, and then I could have gone for the Sludge Bomb. And this really ended up hurting me inside the end. If I would have picked up a double knockout, I could have won pretty convincingly. Because given that James Evans' back is the Rillaboom and Gouging Fire, which we're about to find out inside of a second here, then I would basically be able to intimidate them down and then knock them out with Landorus Eye. However, I kind of played myself here, and James capitalized on it. Okay, so now Rillaboom came in from James's perspective, and I was looking at my team sheet to see what Terra it was. I saw it was Terra Fire, so I opted to go for a pin here where I went for the Icicle Crash into the Rillaboom, followed up with a Earth Power into the Rillaboom. However, in hindsight, I probably should not have done this, and I should have gone for the Icicle Crash into the Landorus Eye, because Landorus Eye did not really have a safe switch into this. As I said, there's only one Ice Resist into this slot. So I kind of got caught here. I thought that maybe James Evans might go for a Wood Hammer into my Landorus and try to knock it out. However, James decided to go for the Fake Out into my Landorus Eye and then Hard Switch into Gouging Fire. And in hindsight, this is a really good play from James Evans because he was able to stop the only way I could do super effective damage into the Gouging Fire and the Rillaboom on the turn he clicked Terra Fire. So, very good play from James. If I could redo this at any way, shape, and form, I would have clicked Icicle Crash into the Landorus. The other thing I could have done as well as I'm looking at this, I could have swapped into my Incineroar on the left slot, and then I could have clicked the Terra Ghost Icicle Crash onto the Landorus Eye slot. That would have been a very good play that I could have gone for, however, I did not take the opportunity, and I got punished for it.
Turn. Landorus is going to be swapping out this time around, so we'll get to see the final Pokemon for James. It'll be that Gouging Fire.
Gouging Fire, also if covering the potential Sucker Punch, we know that Brady didn't go for it, but Sucker Punch would have knocked out the Landorus, so now Gouging Fire wouldn't have taken any damage if he targeted that slot.
Is this acknowledging what Brady has done and calling up Fake Out? Or did James make the prediction over on his end? We'll have to wait one more animation as he's also going to be pulling out the Terastallization.
It's always so dramatic when both players Terastallize on the same turn because there's so much time in between the turns to know, did he make the right call?
Fake Out into the Landorus instead. So Landorus won't be able to act in the Icicle Crash. The Terra Fire to account, but it's going to be a miss nonetheless.
So I missed Icicle Crash, which was kind of annoying, but not really, because James did end up tearing his Rillaboom into fire, so it would have been resisted anyways, not to mention that the Grassy Terrain would have healed back. The one misplay I'm really beating myself up for here is if I had swapped into my Incineroar on the left slot, and then Terra Ghost had locked down the Landorus Eye with an Icicle Crash. That would have been probably much better than what I did. So right here, you're about to see the biggest blunder I make inside the entire set. Right here, I have a very safe double protect because there's only one more turn of Grassy Terrain, and that's great. What he's going to click is just Howl and then probably go for a Wood Hammer or something. Or maybe he's going to click a Fire-type move into my Landorus, because with the sort of Ruin in play, it'll knock out my Landorus pretty convincingly.
James does not have to be worried about potential Defiant boost that would be stopping him from clicking Breaking Swipe.
Chien-Pao swapping out at this point, Incineroar being brought in, a round of Intimidate for the Gouging Fire and the Rillaboom to try and lower the amount of damage that they can do on this turnaround. Of course, the Gouging Fire, if it doesn't want to go on the offensive, can take the opportunity to try and set that attack back up with a Howl, especially with Brady. Passive turn is going to be protecting that Landorus, making sure it's safe from the Grassy Glide coming out from the Rillaboom. Over on James' end, it will be that Howl for him and his partner Pokemon. That is going to be one stage of increased attack, bringing both of these back to neutral.
This right here is the biggest misplay I made inside the entire set. Inside of my head, Grass Train ran out, and that's very good. I cannot protect my Landorus because I just used Protect last turn. Rillaboom no longer threatens my Landorus Eye because Grassy Glide cannot attack me. I felt pretty confident I'd probably live this Heat Crash. Now what I could have done here is faked out the Gouging Fire and clicked Substitute. Or I could have faked out the Rillaboom and then clicked Earth Power into Gouging Fire. However, I decided to click Fake Out onto Rillaboom and Earth Power it. And this was such a big blunder because I knew there was a Landorus Eye into the back.
The Meadow Plate there, so as a Fire type, you definitely don't want to take an Earth Power from Landorus.
Well, Rillaboom, that'll be a swap out. Bring Landorus on to the field at this point as Heat Crash from the Gouging Fire targeting into the Landorus. 1 HP.
Watching this actually kind of hurts. Like literally right there, if I just would have gone for the Earth Power into the Gouging Fire, I would have won the game almost instantly. Because I knock out the Gouging Fire, and then I'm able to Parting Shot out of the Landorus Eye, and then Chin-Pao can clean up the game with a Sucker Punch / Icicle Crash, and then I can switch in my Intimidate to block the Rillaboom from winning the game.
Survival, but the Earth Power into the freshly swapped in Landorus is going to do nothing. The survival, but for what?
If that Earth Power had gone into the Gouging Fire, this would have been completely over, but I fell for the Landorus switch, and I knew that was going to be happening. I had a gut feeling, but I went against my gut, and I decided to go for the safe play, which is just to kind of lock it down, and I kind of got punished for it. So, okay, this is the other thing which I really want to talk about, is that I deviated away from my original game plan, which was to get rid of the Gouging Fire as quickly as possible to make room for my Chin-Pao into the back, and I kind of deserve to lose this because I did that. My original game plan was to get rid of the Gouging Fire. Like I said, I want to keep Chin-Pao in the back and then sweep him with Chin-Pao in the late game. However, I completely fell for this and I did not deserve to win this. You know, right after I made that play, sure I lived, but you know, I could not stop beating myself up after that. You know, not in the moment. In the moment, I could not afford to beat myself up because I still had to win games 2 or 3 if I wanted to win this regional championship. But right then and there was the exact turn where I went for the one play that lost me this set. I had a few micro plays I could have done the earlier game, but this one right here was the big indicator that made me really lose. From here, there's no way I can win this. Yeah, we're just going to skip the rest of this. Like I said, it was over on that turn I clicked Earth Power into the Landorus Eye switch in. I should have locked down the Gouging Fire because that was my original game plan, and I went up against it, and I got punished for it. So, going into game 2, I knew what I had to do. I wanted to go with the Raging Bolt this time around. What Raging Bolt accomplishes is it beats the Gouging Fire and the Rillaboom to the late game. So if James were to go with the exact same lead / Pokemon he brought, he has effectively 3 Pokemon that are negative into my Raging Bolt. So as long as I can get rid of the Landorus Eye instead of the early game, my Raging Bolt can win this game pretty convincingly.
So this is the adjustment with Raging Bolt coming in.
So this is good for me. I looked that he went with the exact same lead, and this is great because I wanted to counter lead this. So from my perspective, I have a very safe and free fake out onto the Landorus Eye, and then I can Calm Mind at my Raging Bolt. Calm Mind achieves 2 things. Number 1, it gives my Raging Bolt more damage, so I can get a few one-hit knockouts I might need later on in the set, but it also allows me to start walling this Landorus Eye. Whenever I get around 3 special defense boosts, I will feel very confident about this Landorus Eye. However, the only problem is that Landorus is going to keep on attacking me, so it'll be very hard to get those 3 boosts without fake out. So that's why I led with Rillaboom to combine that where I could fake out Calm Mind turn 1.
In top 4, those Calm Minds that might be the best way to match the Howl Gouging Fire on the other side.
Pokerpon on this turn, swap out Rillaboom, going to be joining the battle, so has fake out pressure on this next turn. This Landorus will be safe past that this time around. So this could be opportunity for something here. Fake out, just keeping that honest here. But if the Raging Bolt went for a Calm Mind, as it will, that is going to be one raised stage of the special attack and the special defense.
So whenever I saw that switch into Rillaboom, I was kind of like, okay, I kind of see what he's going for. He's going to try to eventually set me up with a pin with Earth Power and Wood Hammer. So for those of you who don't know, a pin is a very safe offensive tool that you can use up against your opponent. Essentially, you lock down a slot with 2 Pokemon types that cover for all the options. So inside of James's case, he has a Wood Hammer and an Earth Power. If I Terra Fairy, then I'm no longer resistant to the Earth Power. If I do not Terra Fairy, then I am weak to the Earth Power. So James trying to set up a pin here. Now, there's one play I could go with here that I was really considering, but I ended up not doing. That play was switching into my Incineroar for my Rillaboom and protecting my Raging Bolt. Now the reason why I did not end up doing this is because I was afraid that he would try to snipe it with an Earth Power, and I did not want to risk that. However, by me getting up the Calm Mind, I should have noticed the pressure that Raging Bolt applied, and I should have played into that more.
And grassy terrain.
When you're looking at the Landorus over on James's end of the field, it's so threatening, and you have to protect the Raging Bolt this turn, but you can't do any damage into James's end with the Fake Out coming out onto the Rillaboom, and it's just going to be AIDS going on this time around of being into protects and not getting too much done.
That was not ideal. That really was not. With that Fake Out onto Rillaboom, he stopped my pivot potential that I was trying to go for to set up a Fake Out the next turn and then maybe Calm Mind again or go for a Dragon Pulse. However, I knew I only had one shot of winning this game at this point, and that was to survive this double tap he's going to set me up for. And the only way I could do that is by switching into my Incineroar on the right slot. So I knew exactly what I was going to go for, but it all came down to if I would survive this attack.
To each other, and this can be a huge call in this moment. Incineroar swapping in for the Rillaboom, so in the next turn around you will have the Fake Out pressure over on Brady's end of things, but it's all going to be the call. Even after the Terrestrialization, and Earth Power into the slot, since it's not Assault Vest, will still do a
Raging Bolt losing the Dragon and Electric to become a pure Fairy type.
Earth Power into the slot. It's going to be dealing just about half damage here, but the follow-up, Wood Hammer into it. Will it be enough? No! 2 HP survival coming on out from the Raging Bolt. Now, opportunity, fire off a Dragon Pulse into the Landorus.
So I did survive that attack. The only problem is this game is far from over because I only have 2 HP on Raging Bolt, which how you use Raging Bolt on this team is you have to all in with it. So it was a very big problem. Getting it on 2 HP, that was a little bit scary, but I felt like I could have decent odds of winning so long as I preserve my Raging Bolt and play very intelligently.
It hangs on at 2, does so much to the Landorus that at any point, if Landorus does not protect in front of Brady's Rillaboom, he can use his priority to knock it out.
Okay, so I thought the switch into Rillaboom was kind of genius. It accomplishes 2 things. Number 1, it allows me to keep the Landorus Eye instead of check the next turn with a Grassy Glide. And number 2, it allows me to get a turn of Leftovers and Grassy Terrain. And, well, I guess it accomplishes 3 things. The third thing, what it does is James would be highly unlikely to click Sludge Bomb into Incineroar. He'd be much more likely to click Earth Power, given the fact it is super effective. So I'm me switching to my Grass type Rillaboom, I'm able to resist that. So I thought this Rillaboom switch was very intelligent on my end. The only problem is I need to stall this game out long enough to get back to full HP on my Raging Bolt.
See the swap here, you have the Fake Out, you have the Grassy Glide, so much pressure onto James' end of the board, and Raging Bolt Protect. It is so low, and you want to make sure the Grassy Glide isn't going to be picking it off. Looking towards the Landorus on this turn, it will be the Earth Power into that Rillaboom. It's not going to be doing too much damage. Great swap coming out from Brady.
This is what Brady does every play and every round. He's one of the best players in the country at just continuing to control the momentum.
Now here, I thought my play was super streamlined. By going into Incineroar, I'm able to effectively keep my Raging Bolt alive because I knew this is the only way I'm winning the game. So I am just trying to stall this game long enough to keep Raging Bolt around for as long as possible. By doing this, I am able to effectively just stall it out a bit longer. Bringing the Incineroar allows me to survive the Grassy Glide, which he went for the previous turn. He probably wants to go for again because he does not want this Raging Bolt to start setting up. And then I'm able to knock out the Landorus Eye to protect the Incineroar to come in safely.
Raging Bolt swapping out such low health, and you want to make sure that you can have it maybe preserved for later and bring the Incineroar in so you have Fake Out again potential on the next turn, or to start pressuring into this Rillaboom. Intimidate as well to drop the attack of the Rillaboom by 1 stage. Landorus as well, though not relevant. Grassy Glide into the Landorus will be picking up the KO there. First KO of the match.
And now if Rillaboom goes for an attack into what was Raging Bolt, it's going to be the Incineroar. Who is this?
Great switches coming out from Brady here. 2 turns in a row.
So I set myself up for an absolutely brilliant next turn where I'm able to fake out whatever James goes into and then click U-turn into the Rillaboom slot. So there's 2 options he could go with here. He could go with Ogre Pond to threaten my Incineroar immediately, or he could go into Gouging Fire to start setting up Howls. Either way, that slot will be getting faked out and I'm U-turning off the Rillaboom every single time. So the cool part about my Rillaboom is I underspeed his Rillaboom, which is great for me because I'm able to get my Raging Bolt for free and then start getting Leftovers recovery, which is how I'm winning this game, like I said earlier. So it was Ogre Pond. Now looking at this, I knew I would be able to wall these. I knew I would be able to wall this board with my Rillaboom. Because if you look at James's Rillaboom, he has Wood Hammer, Grassy Glide, and Taunt Fake Out. and the Ogerpon only has a grass move and a water move. So Rillaboom feels extremely safe here, and I'm looking to get Rillaboom in and out as much as possible. So like I said, I have a very free fake out, and then I can U-turn out off of his Rillaboom to go into my Raging Bolt, which will effectively allow me to get another turn of leftovers, and then I can reset fake out again the next turn by going into Rillaboom.
I mean, you can do a little bit of damage, but it isn't going to be too much. So this is where we are going to be seeing that swap. This will be the fourth final Pokemon, Gouging Fire, once again coming out. This has the potential to do a lot more than that Rillaboom could.
Yeah, Landorus and Fire Water Grass is your 4 Pokemon that you bring with your life on the line here. Makes total sense because they're such strong synergy together.
Spiky Shield, make sure that potential fake out is not going to be doing too much, and a little bit of chip return onto that Incineroar just as a little punishment. Don't come after me. But now Rillaboom can be firing off an attack, a chance to pivot. No damage really done into the Gouging Fire, but you do have the chance to bring something back in and respond to the Gouging Fire that James has brought.
Brady will bring his Raging Ball back on to the field, but look at how low it is. Look at, actually, remember, it hung on barely from the previous attack, and it's back into the yellow because of leftover on multiple turns.
So on this turn, I felt pretty confident that I could switch into Rillaboom in the left slot, and this does 2 things. Number 1, it resists the Ivy Cudgel from the Ogerpon, but I do leave myself open to a Heat Crash from the Gouging Fire. I was kind of okay with making this trade because this guarantees I have Fake Out the next turn, which can allow my Raging Bolt to get back to more HP, which is how I'm winning this game. So I was totally okay with losing my Rillaboom here if it did get sniped. If it didn't get sniped, then that means that I have Fake Out next turn, and I can start stalling / setting up with my Raging Bolt. So I will always click switch out here and protect because I'm not going to lose the game to a choke. Something else I gotta say what was really great about this play I went for is that the only way that James could have start getting pressure is by going for Howl. But if he clicks Howl, then he does not punish my Rillaboom from coming in. So I kind of set him up with a crossroads where either way, it's not very good for him.
And it's going to be tough for James to decide which of his Pokemon he wants to terrestrialize in this matchup. Obviously, Ogerpon Wellspring would not enjoy being hit by a Thunderclap.
You can see James, yes, there for a second. Did he call the swap in? One of the moves that Gouging Fire has is the Heat Crash. He could be targeting into it to try and deal with it, especially with the Raging Bolt going for the Protect this time around. And if you want to take advantage here, this is where we have to see those heads-up play. Heat Crash into the Rillaboom, enough to be taken to KO.
This is what you have to do to break through Brady's defense. You have to make predictions. You have to be aggressive and go on the offensive.
Just accounting for whatever is going to be happening here, but now Incineroar being forced back out onto the field.
So this turn was technically a read. I could read that Ogerpon goes for the Spiky Shield, and then I could punish that with a Fake Out on the Gouging Fire and a Calm Mind onto my Raging Bolt. Now, the only thing is, based on how James was playing that game 1, he did not go for Protect on any of the turns that I was expecting him to, so this time I was not going to fall for it. So I decided to go for the Fake Out and the Dragon Pulse. This allows him to be in range of my Thunderclap the next turn, which is exactly what I need to win this game. So whenever Rillaboom went down, I honestly was kind of okay with that. Because like I said, the only way that James could punish this by going for a Heat Crash, which if he clicks Heat Crash, he's not clicking the Howl, which means that this next turn, he'll be -1 in both of his Pokemon. So I was totally okay with Rillaboom going down there. And now that Incineroar's on the board, I have Fake Out pressure. I know that with this pressure, I could totally go for a Fake Out and a Calm Mind, and I know that James probably is going to over-respect this, so I decided to go for a Call Out, which I go for the Fake Out and the Dragon Pulse on the Ogerpon, allowing me to get some damage onto it to put it in range of Thunderclap.
For whenever Raging Bolt gets low, for when Chien-Pao's Sash is broken, you have Grassy Glide.
Fake Out into the Ogerpon, Howl from the Gouging Fire, bringing up to neutral the attack of both of these Pokemon. There'll be the flinch for the Ogerpon, of course, and Dragon Pulse coming out, getting into this Pokemon.
That right there was the game deciding turn. I put him into my trap. So basically now I am able to restore up enough HP onto my Raging Bolt. His Ogerpon is down range of Thunderclap, and there's not much he can do to stop a Thunderclap plus a Parting Shot. Even if he hard switched into Rillaboom, I'm going to punish that by going to my Chien-Pao the next turn.
Game.
And looking at the Thunderclap, ready an attack from the Ogerpon. That will be enough. It'll get to act first, being that priority to take care of that Pokemon. Now, James down to 2. Howl again from the Gouging Fire, only getting to set up itself.
By me knocking out the Ogerpon there, that was one of his last resources to stop the Raging Bolt cycle, where I can intimidate his whole board, set up a Calm Mind, and then win the game. So right there, the game pretty much was skewed in my favor. I could maybe lose it if I allow myself to get wood hammered, but inside of a situation like this, I see my path to victory. I'm not going to let that happen.
is just going to be back at neutral yet again after that parting shot. And now Brady gets the swap, and maybe that is the momentum that he needs on this turn.
Yeah, James is in distress after that turn where the Thunderclap mind games went in Brady's favor. It is a neutral hit into the water grass type Ogre Pond Wellspring, so it was low, under half HP, more than enough for Raging Bolt with a massive special attack stat.
Something else I really want to highlight that I thought I did pretty well was abuse my own Grassy Train, where I set up Grassy Train earlier on inside the game, which allows his Rillaboom to not have it inside this late game. So that was very good for me, because I can intimidate the board and then he loses his priority attacks. So I can go for a Thunderclap onto the Rillaboom in case he goes for a Terra Fire, and if it does not go for a Terra Fire, it's weak to Flare Blitz and Icicle Crash. So I felt pretty confident at this point the game was probably mine.
At least Gouging Fire does have one Howl boost because of clicking it 2 turns in a row, and then the...
So you saw there for a second I was looking at the Grassy Train turns, and I saw there were 2 more. And for me that means I have a perfect line where I can switch into Incineroar and click Protect, and the next turn I can click Fake Out. And I'm going to be getting, that is effectively 2 turns of Grassy Train and Leftovers recovery, which accounts for about 1/4 of my health. And that's exactly what I need on Raging Bolt. I need HP to win this game, so I'm just kind of slowly but surely getting myself to victory here.
Can try to do Breaking Swipe into both Chien-Pao and Incineroar, but of course currently Raging Bolt would be immune to those Breaking Swipes as a Fairy type.
This is where Brady with his team we saw all game long, he is not afraid of switching, and yet again, Intimidate for both of these Pokemon is going to do so well. And James, sure, you have the Howl, but there's only so many turns you can do that if you're slowly losing momentum and getting chipped away. So you have to just start attacking and dealing with that, or a Flare Blitz coming out. Raging Bolt, protect this turn.
Yeah, gonna be just continue to recover HP. By the time the Grassy Terrain ends, it will be almost full HP if it just continues to protect and use Leftovers.
That'll be the Breaking Swipe this time around, coming out from Gouging Fire. Of course, immunity from the Raging Bolt, since it is that Fairy Terastallization or Incineroar, that'll be 1 stage of lowered attack and just chipping away at it.
So this turn, from my perspective, I have this completely locked up. As long as I play very smart. All I need to do is fake out the Rillaboom and click Dragon Pulse into it. Because it did reveal its Terra Fire, that means it'll be in range of a Thunderclap after this Dragon Pulse. And as long as I don't really mess this up, like fall for a taunt in my parting shot, then I should be able to close this out.
Well, this is where the fake out from Incineroar is going to be coming oh so handy, making sure that we won't get another opportunity for that Rillaboom to use a priority attack is Howl from the Gouging Fire to try and bring these Pokemon back to neutral one more time. Try and make sure you can do the damage that you need. Dragon Pulse hitting into the Rillaboom. It will get a little bit of recovery from that last turn of Grassy Terrain, but at this point, the Pokemon on Brady's end, they're just not really getting damaged these last few turns.
So, like what I said earlier, the Grass Train just now expired, which means that if the Rillaboom wants to get off an attack, it needs to go for a non-priority attack, which means he will now be susceptible to my Thunderclaps. Because he has Terra Fire, he's not resistant to anymore. So I see a very safe play, which is to go for Thunderclap into the Rillaboom and Hard Switch into my Chien-Pao. And the reason why I Hard Switch my Chien-Pao is because I was expecting the taunt. There's only 2 things that James could do on this. Either he attacks or he does not attack. If he does not attack, that means he gets off no damage, meaning I get to keep my Focus Sash on my Chien-Pao. But if he does attack, that means he gets knocked out by this Thunderclap. So I set him up for a nasty combo to where he could not do anything. And let's say if he did somehow knock out my Chien-Pao, which would, like I said, be impossible because I did have the Focus Sash. Then next turn I could go back into Incineroar, click Fake Out, and then I could go for a safe Dragon Pulse. And then either way, Rillaboom will be gone inside of 1 to 2 turns here. So that was exactly what I was playing for, so this game is over at that point.
Howl boosted hits from his Ogre Pond, and he has not been able to make that happen in game 2.
Swap yet again from Brady, Chien-Pao, Incineroar in the back for a potential swap, and yet again on the next turn around. And at this point, too, Thunderclap attempting for a hit, but a fail. Mate must be readying up a taunt instead. Gouging Fire for the Howl. Sure, maybe this game is at a snail's pace, but James still insistent on trying to speed it up. Taunt into the Chien-Pao, attempting to try into the Incineroar, but at this point, the Chien-Pao probably will swap, but
Now, the one way I could lose this game is if the Gouging Fire were to crit a Heat Crash onto my Raging Bolt, and I was not about to let that happen. So I saw my streamline play, which was to switch into Incineroar in the left slot, protect my Raging Bolt, and this allows me to go for the final Fake Out and then Dragon Pulse onto the Rillaboom, which can lock up the game.
Can still just try and taunt into that slot, calling a swap, but more importantly, making sure that you're never readying up an attack, so you can try and deal some damage other ways with that Gouging Fire, so you're not going to get risked KO'd from a Thunderclap. As Incineroar will be swapping in this turn, yet again, another round of Intimidate. So difficult to try and get these Pokemon underway. The Rillaboom did try to go for it.
So I clicked Thunderclap there instead of Protect, which actually I think was the correct play, because if I click Thunderclap, the only way that James could maybe stop that is by clicking Taunt, which means he'd not get off an attack, which means next turn I could fake out and Dragon Pulse him. So at that point, I had this locked up. The second Rillaboom went down, I won. As for the 101 with the Gouging Fire up against the Raging Bolt, how I win this just by setting up one Calm Mind and clicking Dragon Pulse once to be able to win the game, because I now have fake out pressure, so this Calm Mind is pretty much guaranteed.
This time around, it will be KO'd. Thunderclap coming on out, and now it was Gouging Fire against the world, and this Gouging Fire, I don't think it has enough steam in the tank.
Yeah, he crashed into the Raging Bolt, but it is full HP, and you see through so many Intimidates just how little damage. Of course, Raging Bolt is also a pretty big boy, too, so you're not going to be doing too much damage into that there. But
this Gouging Fire to where it can't do what it needs to at this point. Burning Bulwark, protecting itself through this turn of attacks. Dragon Pulse coming on out. James, at this point, you're just thinking, what can I do for game 3?
Right, exactly. Maintain your composure. You know,
So the second I saw that 3 minutes come out, I was halfway tempted to just kind of stall this out to sort of try to tilt my opponent and make him start kind of getting impatient and play very sloppily inside of game 3. So around here, but I decided not to because I didn't really want to like BM, but on hindsight, maybe I should have, because it would have been, you know, I could have played to tilt him a little bit. However, the thing is, I have 100% win condition, which is just to click Dragon Pulse, so I'm not going to stall out the game anymore, so I decided to do that. Now let's talk about game 3. This time around, I had a feeling that James was going to be adjusting with the Fluttermane. The reason why is because in the previous set, I was able to win with my Raging Bolt. So I figured that James's plan would be to play a early game Fluttermane and try to stop my Raging Bolt from setting up. So I decided to lead with my Urshifu Rapid Strikes, which is holding the Choice Scarf item and has access to the Terra Steel. Terra Steel resists the Fairy type moves that Fluttermane wants to go for here. I knew I was leading with Urshifu. The question is, what do I combine it with? Well, I have two options. I could combine it with Chin Pao to get immediate fast damage output, or I could combine it with Rillaboom to pin the Fluttermane turn 1 with a Wood Hammer and a Surging Strikes. I decided to go with Rillaboom.
But it's time to get into game 3 here, the Vancouver Regional.
I did not recognize that. I did not know they did that with like the alarm. Like,
yeah, dude, whenever there's a game 3, they...
That's kind of cool. That's kind of sick. Oh my goodness, I did not know that.
Fluttermane will be the adjustment of choice coming out from James. Not the only one, though. Urshifu to make an appearance here in the Grand Finals as well.
If you're so annoyed at getting faked out every turn, then bring your Ghost type.
So, I led with my Urshifu and my Rillaboom, and I decided to commit with the strategy I had in mind, which I could pin it with a Wood Hammer and a Surging Strikes, and you see me lock that in very quickly. I also decided to Terra Steel, because with the Terra Steel I can resist the super effective Fairy type move coming from the Fluttermane. I felt pretty confident that no matter what happened, this Fluttermane was going to be going down this turn.
And the Choice Scarf essentially works as pseudo speed control, because now you're going to be moving faster. When you're not fake outed, of course, you're going to be moving faster than everybody else.
I'll have to save till next turn, delaying that until later, but Shadow Ball into it to cover for the Trastalization, doing a lot of damage. Wood Hammer for Rillaboom, though, into the Fluttermane, then bringing it right...
So that kind of caught me off guard. I thought that I would probably get the knockout. I know I'm not really that attack invested on my Rillaboom, but I did a lot of calcs in practice, and I figured it would always get the knockout. Now, the one thing that was kind of good about this is that now Fluttermane is unlocked this next turn. It cannot really do anything to stop a double target into it with a Surging Strikes and a Grassy Glide. Either way, it's going to be getting knocked out. Well, with the pressure of Surging Strikes and Grassy Glide, I have so much offensive pressure in this Fluttermane, so I figured that James is probably going to let it go down this turn. However, I decided to lock into a Surging Strikes this next turn to potentially cover for a Gouging Fire switching in. Now, in hindsight, what I should have done here is double-clicked U-turn. If I would have U-turn into the Fluttermane and then clicked U-turn into the Rillaboom, I would have felt pretty good about my position here. But I decided to go for the Surging Strikes to fish for a Gouging Fire, potentially switching in. There was also the chance that James maybe went for a Grassy Glide and crit into my Urshifu, and I was not going to risk that to lose the game.
That Brady's throwing your way, but no. Just willing to say that, hey, I've had enough with this Fluttermane. It did what it needed to do, dealt some damage, and get a free swap in for the next turn. It's going to have to be what it is for now. Wood Hammer from Rillaboom over on James's end. Not very effective, but with the Metal Plate and the help of the Grassy Train is still going to be doing a nice chunk to the Rillaboom. That's doing a lot less even with that super effective U-turn.
Yeah, so I guess James wanted to call a potential switch into maybe Raging Bolt or something else in the back and do Wood Hammer, but instead he just does the resisted damage to Rillaboom. Now Brady is able to get his Raging Bolt in at full HP, for free on the field, get a quick Moonblast and get knocked out. Now you can save the Terra for later on the Gouging Fire. Gouging Fire's Terra is actually Fairy, which would mean it's immune to the dragon.
Okay, now you're about to see the biggest mistake I made inside the entire set. Instead of going for a hard swap into Incineroar and clicking Protect onto my Raging Bolt, I decided to go for a Dragon Pulse because I wanted to get some damage off onto this Rillaboom. However, if I would have just clicked the Protect here, I could have prevented this taunt, and then I could have faked out and gotten off a Calm Mind the next turn.
You probably anticipate that Ogerpon Wellspring was left at home because Landorus Incarnate is so valuable in this matchup, but until that information is revealed, you have to play around both outs.
I can't imagine that James would allow his Flutter Mane to perish like that if he had a Wellspring Ogerpon in the back. So I think with how pivotal Landorus has been, holding it in the back for later, Heat Crash into what was that Steel type, it's going to be denying it. But now Taunt into the Raging Bolt. No Calm Minds, no Protects. It can go on the offensive though. Dragon Pulse, not in.
That right there was the biggest blunder of the entire set. If I would have just hard switched into Incineroar and then click Protect, I could have faked out this Rillaboom, gotten off a Calm Mind, and then that would be enough to presumably live this Earth Power from Landorus. If not, I could have gotten off 2 as well, but I decided to do none of that. And I'm kind of kicking myself in the shin for not going for that as I'm rewatching this, but you know, I guess I didn't really play optimally, and James kind of capitalized on it. This is the number 2 blunder I made. I could have gone ahead and faked out the Rillaboom and hard swapped out into my own Rillaboom to effectively nullify this Calm Mind and then try getting up another Calm Mind in the mid-set. But I did not go for that, instead fall for this bait where I knock out the Rillaboom and give him a free switch into his Landorus Eye.
Continue the parting shots onto James's Pokemon.
At this point, Burning Bulwark over on the Gouging Fire. Make sure it's not going to be taking a powerful attack this time around. As Fake Out into the Rillaboom, not enough to be picking up the KO that time around, but will deny it from an opportunity to act and allow this Raging Bolt to just fire off a Dragon Pulse there. So now it'll be a free swap for James to see that 4th and final Pokemon.
Oh man, this is kind of hard to watch. Right there, I just messed up for 2 turns, and I threw away all my momentum I had gained. I had him inside of a great position to where the Rillaboom was not doing anything, but I just knocked it out. If anything, this should be a good case study for how getting a knockout could actually bite you in the butt later. And that's exactly what happened here. I gave him a free switch into his Landorus Eye, and this ended up screwing me over inside of the end. So, in retrospect, there were 2 turns that I kind of blundered there. I should not have gone for the Dragon Pulse onto the Rillaboom. I should have instead of clicked Protect, and I should have switched into Incineroar. Then I could have faked out and Calm Minded, and that would have been a very safe play. The next blunder I made was knocking out the Rillaboom and giving a free switch into Landorus Eye. Instead of knocking out the Rillaboom, what I could have maybe have done is just ignored it, potentially going for a Dragon Pulse into the Gouging Fire, or I could have gone for the hard switch out of my Incineroar into my Rillaboom. Either way, both of those would have given me more momentum than what I went for. I had no reason to knock out the Rillaboom there, and I basically gave the game to James at this point. However, there was one shot that I had to win this game. I knew I needed up Calm Mind, so I had to slowly but surely position this. On this next turn, a lot of people say this is a choke, and if they say that, they have no idea how to play this game. They do not know what they're talking about. I have to win this with Calm Mind and my Raging Bolt, so I need to double switch out here, and I have to make sure I do it inside the right order. I figured James is going to pin my right slot, being the Raging Bolt, with an Earth Power and a Fire move, because if I switch to my Rillaboom, then I eat up the Fire move. If I switch into anything else, then I eat up the Ground move. So basically, I figure that James is going to be going for a pin here, so I have to carefully switch out both my Pokemon. I'm going to be losing one of my Pokemon this turn, and I had to decide which one it was. That Pokemon is going to be Urshifu. The reason why is because Urshifu's in check for the rest of the game from the Gouging Fire. So by me switching out into Rillaboom in the left slot and Urshifu in the right slot, I'm able to angle a Fake Out plus Calm Mind, which can maybe allow me to win this game.
So with that, it will be a Raging Bolt that is swapping out, bringing a different Pokemon in, Urshifu, to join back onto the field. Since it has Terastallized, it still will be a Pokemon that can take a lot of damage from the Earth Power, but double swap from Brady.
Yeah, now you bring that Terra Steel Urshifu back onto the field. Since Brady has the advantage, the Pokemon count advantage, you might as well take to use it while you can. Urshifu's done its job. Urshifu was there to outspeed Flutter Mane and get that knockout, so you're done with that. It's way more important to keep Rillaboom and Incineroar around safe in the back so you can continue to intimidate Cycle.
Earth Power going into the Rillaboom. not very effective hit, not going to be doing the much, bringing the Rillaboom down real low. That will be the grassy terrain. Eliminated from the field, though, as Raging Bolt being brought back out onto the field. Since Terastallization has been used for Brady, this Raging Bolt can be taking a lot of damage.
So I repositioned myself in order to get up a Fake Out and another Calm Mind. Now, I knew that this game, I could have still won it, but I was still a little bit bummed out that I threw away my momentum to the early game.
Or you just go for raw damage.
No attempt to protect on the Landorus. Howl's going to be raising just that attack for the Gouging Fire. Does to the Landorus, but negated at this point since it is that special attacker. Landorus, it will be flinching this time around, and Raging Bolt going for the Calm Mind. Brady set himself up well so that...
So it all comes down to this. This is the absolute last turn and the game deciding one. I could either go for a Protect and a switch into Incineroar, which will allow me to Fake Out the Landorus next turn and get off one more Calm Mind, and if I get off that last Calm Mind, I'm able to win the game. Or alternatively, I could go for the Dragon Pulse into the Landorus, reading that my opponent will click Substitute. Now, Substitute would block the Fake Out, so I figured that would be a perfectly valid play from James. You can see me hovering over Protect. I'm just about to lock it in, but then doubt creeps in.
He can try to do as much damage as he can onto that Calm Mind boosted Raging Bolt.
Incineroar swapping in yet again, just trying to make sure that the Gouging Fire can be kept in check this time around. It does have the Breaking Swipe, so if it wants to start trying to just start dealing some damage at any point, it can, and it will. So little into these Pokemon, though, at this point. It will be dropping Incineroar, that's about it. But you see James, you see this hope. Is Earth Power going to be enough? And it will! Raging Bolt is going to fall just down final 2 Pokemon.
And just like that, there goes the chances of me winning my 4th regional championship. A little bit bittersweet. At the very end, especially coming one turn away from winning, if I would have just locked in my Protect play like I originally had in mind, then I would have pretty much won this game. However, like I said, doubt crept in, and it did not work out the way I had wanted it to. The other thing is, I'm pretty sure that Earth Power was actually a roll on my Raging Bolt, which is a little bit, I could be kind of salty about that, but on the other hand, it's like, like, he got me. Like, he went for the Earth Power on the turn, not Protect, and he got me there, so I cannot be upset about that. I tried playing odds, like what would probably give me the best odds of winning, but sometimes you just gotta full send it.
He knows with the Raging Bolt gone, the chance is gone as well, and with that, James Evan to claim victory here in the finals of Vancouver, becoming regional champion.
So that is how I lost in the finals of the Vancouver Regional Championships. So all in all, it did kind of hurt, I'm not gonna lie, just being like so close, specifically literally one turn away. It wasn't even like it was a slaughter in the finals, it was actually right down to the wire, which I did give it a good fight, I'd like to say, but a few things I'd like to highlight. Number one, inside of game 1, I had an opportunity to win, and I did not take it. I could have Earth Powered into the Gouging Fire, but I did not go for that. Instead, I went into the opposing Landorus on the switch in, or that ended up costing me the game, which furthermore ended up costing me the set. The number 2 mistake I made was allowing Rillaboom to get a free switch out. If I had just denied that free switch out and would have gone for the Dragon Pulse into the opposing Gouging Fire, or potentially a switch out to reset the taunt, those plays both would have been valid, but I went for none of them. And because I did not go for the opportunity, it came down to a 50-50 in the end, which I ended up losing. That right there is how I lost in the finals of the Vancouver Regional Championship. Thank you everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed this content. Look forward to our next videos. Bye. Okay, now I gotta see the roll, because I know that was a roll action. Now I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh.